Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother asarimhotep with the Madhu Mandela Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture, as well as the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. And today is Sunday, June the 13th, 2021. And we have a powerful show for you today. Our topic is the Divine Nine and African spirituality. Can you practice African spirituality, or what I call Kimoyo, and belong to a Black Greek lettered organization? So we have a few representatives representing the Divine Nine to talk about African spirituality and African culture and the study of African people and belonging to those orgs. And so all of that and more when we return in just a moment. Peace, 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 everyone. Those of you who are catching us live, and then, of course, those of you who will be catching the archive. Again, we have a very special topic, and this is just the first in the series along these lines. And again, we're dealing with the Divine Nine, Black Greek letter organizations that were founded on various different universities and colleges here in the United States. And we're going to talk about, the pros and cons, if there are any, of joining such an organization, and if there are any conflicts with the study of African spirituality, the study and practice of African spirituality and or African culture. And so how this topic came to be is really a long time in the making. And, as one who is someone who studies and writes on African culture and philosophy and the like, I'm immersed in the culture. And if you've ever watched this channel, y'all know that, I rep my organization, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, any chance that I get. And so there are some in the community who believe that somehow there's a betrayal of being an African and practicing African culture and African spirituality and belonging to a Black Greek letter organization. And so I want to have this conversation in community and answer, any questions that people may have, regarding, our respective organizations, and more so just to get what, people get out of belonging to such organizations. And again, if there's any conflict. So we'll be doing this in relation to not only the Black Greek letter organization. So we'll be doing a part two to this with some different people, because there's 9 divine organizations, and to try to have everybody on one program would be kind of intense. So, that'll be broken up. So there'll be a part 2 to this, as well as we are going to have the same conversation, except we're going to have discussions with people who practice African spirituality and identify as African and practice African culture, but also belong to a Masonic order or Eastern Stars. And so, that'll be coming up soon. And then we're going to do, a third in the series, those who belong to Christianity and Islam. And so, we're going to cover the whole gamut. And so the idea is, in essence, to promote the things that we create and participate in as African Americans, and to show that something is African because Africans created. And if we are an African people here in the United States, anything that we create, is African. And so, we'll get into the details of all of that and more. And so before we get into that, just want to, of course, announce that I have a Patreon page. And I know that I've been kind of slow on the Patreon, but there's a reason. And now I'm getting ready to, do more, how should I say, structured videos and design videos instead of lives. And so, the Patreon, they will be the first to get access to them. And some videos will be exclusive to them. And so you can help support the channel and support the upcoming documentary film, which I will start shooting next year in January, when I get back to the East Coast. And right now we're just getting equipment and learning certain software and stuff like this so that we have a good editing experience and the whole nine. So you can help support that movement that Chiena into, where we'll be comparing the modern Bantu cultures of Central, South, and East Africa with that of ancient Kemet. So it's going to be a very, very powerful film. It's going to be based on the scholarship of myself, Jean-Claude Mboli, Teofilo Benga, Oscar Pafuma, and a whole host of others. Dr. Raketi Amin, the whole nine. So it's going to be very, very powerful. So y'all make sure that y'all support that. And upcoming texts, this will probably be released in August. This is Chiluba Maweja, Yoruba Orisha, and Ancient Egyptian Ankh, an exploratory etymological study. It's going to be the first text released for the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. And so I'll have a whole show on that. And almost finished, and this will be released in July. And that is Muntu Wa and Zombie, Portrait of Human as God's Special Creation. And this is going to be by Dr. Shalima Mukinge out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so this is a book that I've edited and printed as part of the Madu Indela press. And so it's going to be very, very powerful. So we'll have a whole show dedicated to that. So shout out to everyone who's in the chat that's made themselves known. Pure Black, Dealing the Real, and Useri, Sean Polidore, Donnie Williams. Those of you who are watching from Facebook, both on the Harold Johnson page and the asarimhotep page. And so peace and blessings to each and every one of y'all. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring on my panel, my esteemed panel. So welcome, Sister Nya Amara, Brother Nkito Mwanga, and y'all know Brother Sonjedi Ankh Ra, aka Ifa Tunde Fayemi, in the building, in the place to be. And just want to say welcome. Thank each and every one of you again for joining us today to have this discussion. And so just briefly, I want to introduce yourselves and what organization that you represent today as far as the Black Greek Letter organization is concerned. So we're going to start with Sister Nya, Brother Nkito, and then Brother Sonjedi.
Thank you so much, Brother Asar. I am honored to be here on the panel to have this important conversation. My name is Nya Amara, and I am an active and financial member of Zeta Phi Beta sorority. And I'm representing my ideas today, but I'm talking about how I've been cultivated through the principles of that organization. So I look forward to the conversation.
All right.
Yeah, my name is Nkito Mwanga, also known as Patrick Davis, also known as PJ. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Epsilon Phi chapter at McNeese State University. And the disclaimer is going to be is my views aren't necessarily the views of the entire organization, because I can be pretty radical sometimes, and I'll leave it at that.
Indeed. Brother Sonjedi.
All right. Greetings, everyone. Thanks for having me on the panel. It's an honor to be here. So as you may know, Sonjedi Ankh Ra, and my Yoruba given name is Ifatunde Fayemi, a Pega. And in the fraternity is Alpha for Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Duke Club Spring 05, Gamma Sigma Chapter, Delaware State University, HBCU. So I had to rep on y'all. And I'm here just to discuss my experiences and related to everyone else here, being a member of a BGLO, Black Greek Letter Fraternity and organizations, and dealing with Kimoyo traditions.
Indeed. And we're supposed to have one more guest, actually a family member of mine, Sister Crystal, who at last minute had a family emergency. And so, I'm wishing the best for her, and maybe we'll get her on in part 2. And she represents Delta Sigma Theta from Sam Houston State University. Matter of fact, we were online at the same time, and that's where we met, and we didn't even know we were family, until years later. So that's an interesting story unto itself. But so the underlying question, of the evening is do you find a conflict in belonging to a BGLO, Black Greek Letter Organization, and also being a practitioner, an engager of African culture and or spirituality? Because I say culture and spirit because there's really no difference. The culture is, saying the spiritual system. So the culture, spirituality, or anything to that nature. Is there any conflict? And anybody can go first.
All right, I'll start it off since between me and our Kappa brother here. It's all good. All right. So, is there a conflict between being in a BGLO and an African tradition? If you have a strong Christian perspective, then yes. But given that I do not have a Christian perspective, then I'm going to say no. The reason why I'm going to say no is because the BGLOs Black Greek letter organizations are formulated by African Americans, and are formulated by African Americans who come from a greater community, African Americans in general. And anything that we do, we're always going to bring African isms. And to say African isms because many of us may not even be aware that that's what we are carrying with us when we're formulating organizations. Albeit even in the presence of using, say, a Eurocentric framework, we're still going to bring the African spiritual, let's say, meat, if you will, into the body of whatever we're doing, even with that double consciousness, etc. So even when you're dealing with church, okay, we're bringing spirit in there, you know, with the dancing and speaking in tongues, etc., if you will. These are African traditions, even though people may not be aware of it. The structure of, say, brotherhood, frater, the structure of sisterhood, soror, both, of course, Latin and Greek terms, we've already had that in the African diaspora and on the continent. You can call them priesthoods, etc. Warrior clans, all those things were already there. These are things that we were already familiar with, conscious or unconscious. Having a hierarchy of leadership. We've had those things already. Going through hard trials and tribulations to demonstrate your courage, demonstrate your character. All those things were already in Africa. These are things that we were already familiar with. Albeit again, in this country, we're using on the surface like a Eurocentric type frame, if you will, that looks like, but then you'll notice the commonalities with African traditions, conscious or unconscious, in our organizations. So, pass it on.
I think in my experience, most Greek letter organizations walk hand in hand with Christianity. So I don't know if you can be a Greek Christian and practice African spirituality at the same time too. I don't know. It's just like a 2 against 1. Unless you're waking up, within your own private time. But it's definitely Christian influenced organizations.
I think that a lot of times we get into like the conflict and kind of like this either or mentality. But I think when we're looking at African spirituality and culture and Greek letter organization, it's important for us to first kind of look at the commonalities. And I think that Brother Sonjedi spoke to that, because part of being an African American, part of being part of the culture, we bring with us, like Brother Sar was saying, our culture, our essence, our psychology. And so when you look at Greek organizations, you see during the time of the foundation, these brothers and sisters, they were bringing to the organization an African view, an African perspective of community, how you should act, how you should be, how you should look. And so regardless to if you are a Christian or Muslim, or whatever and you're part of whatever organizations, the attributes, the characteristics, the focus of the organization is what binds us together. So our commonalities bind us, not our conflicts. Indeed. And so for me, there's absolutely no conflict whatsoever.
And I think that needs to be stressed, because to my knowledge, although it is Christian dominated in terms of its members, it boasts no religious affiliation. The only requirement is that whoever joins the organization has a belief in God, but they don't determine, how you interpret that, what particular religion you go. So you have people in the organization who are Muslims, who are Christians, who are African centered in their spiritual traditions all belong to the organization. So in terms of religion, quote unquote, the only requirement is that you believe in God. Other than that, you can't enter the organization professing to be an atheist.
True.
Now,
by default, though, you assume you're a Christian. You got to explain to them, well, no, I'm a Muslim or I'm Judaist. It's already by default assume that you're a Christian, though.
I think it depends, you know, on where you go and who you deal with. In terms, yeah, because it's
the South,
you know,
the South.
Oh, well, if it's the South, you know, it's
automatically assume
it's automatically they're going to automatically assume. But yeah, like if you are different, you know, it'll be known, you know, when you are once you enter the organization. But I just want to stress that, to my knowledge, I don't know the entry criteria for every single one, but I believe that is the criterion. It's just that you believe in God, and then that but they don't discriminate based on your, you know, saying religion. And so that unto itself would show, at least from the organizational standpoint, that there's no conflict, because, you know, now you have to evaluate it on the particular values, you know, of the organization. And so this leads me to my next question. You know, what was it that attracted you to that particular organization in which you joined, and what are some of the principles and values that you cherish, you know, of that organization, that you try to live by and personify, you know, each and every day? And this time I'll start with Sister Nya, then we'll go in Nkito.
Okay. So for me, I have to say that I joined the organization in a graduate chapter. So my experience is very different from undergraduate. And so during the time in my life, I wanted to be part of an organization that shared my same values and my same perspective as it relates to African Americans as a whole. So we're talking about communities in the South and the North, the West, Midwest. So I wanted to be part of an organization that I felt can help me to develop my character in a way that would help me to refine my skills, not just my educational skills, but my inner skills as well, my interpersonal skills. And so the focus of my organization is on the things that I love, like scholarship, relationships, you know, sisterhood, and community service, and also refining yourself and being the best person that you can possibly be. My organization also is the first Greek lettered organization to have chapters in Africa, of course, so that was something that I chose. And also my organization is also the first chapter to be constitutionally binded to another Greek lettered organization, which is Phi Beta Sigma. So, I mean, and so those three principles, right, binds us together. And so for me, that's very African, because when I came in, I was already African centered and like studying African culture. So when I saw those things, I felt that I wanted to be part of an organization that was actually working in Black communities, working with Black women, working with Black families. And that's what I wanted to do. So I went in trying to refine my skills and trying to figure out how to become a better person, a better business person, a better woman. So that was my reason for it.
All right.
Yeah, I would say what attracted me to Kappa Alpha Psi was the brotherhood, the networking, and you know, every time I would see a Kappa, they'd just be distinguished and dressed a certain way. I mean, all the ladies love the Kappas, so that's another added bonus. So it was like, it was a no-brainer for me. You know, so I could go ahead with Kappa Alpha Psi. And I like the way I can go to anywhere in the world, pretty much in the world at this point, I can find a frat brother to go hang out with. They can show me, the ropes of where to go hang out, where, just, I don't know, it's just a great network.
And we're going to get to that networking piece a little later on. But go ahead, Brother Sonjedi.
Okay, so for me, it was a no-brainer, and usually it's based off of what your personality type is. We, as a black men and women, we have varying ranges. Mm-hmm. So it really started before I started. So the thing that got me interested both in becoming an alpha, but really what starts me African tradition, which was probably, I'm assuming, it's the next question further down. So we have this work right here, Journey of the Songhai People by Dr. Edward Robinson. So this actually helps me with African tradition, which we'll get to that. But he was also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So anyone who has this book or ever seen this ancestor is an alpha. And his grandson is actually my best friend, and we grew up together. I've listened to Dr. Edward Robinson's tapes, etc., and it really enlightened me. Now, as far as Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, one of our mottos is, first of all, servants of all, we shall transcend all. Mm-hmm. And, when I see that, I'm like, okay, I like the slogan. A lot of the guys that I looked up to just happen to be alphas, like Dr. Asa Hilliard, so we'll throw that one out there. Dr. Anthony Browder, we'll come back to that. These men were members of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So looking up to them, and of course, as far as the visual, they have what's been called the Sphinx. We know is Horam Akhet. So I'm like, okay, that's my speed, because I was already into Kemet. I was already into African studies before I pledged the fraternity. And I like the distinguishment. So just like our brother Nkito, hopefully I'm saying it correctly, Nkito, he's seeing black men distinguished, dressed in a certain way, carrying themselves in a mature professional manner. That's something I also seen with the brothers Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and my best friend, who's he pledged Alpha, so it was just all around me. So it was a no-brainer for me based on my personality type, and of course I like doing community service. I like helping people. I do it being paid or not paid, and those are things brothers were doing. I like talking to people, teaching people. I like learning, looking for ways for self-improvement and implementing it, and looking at other black men who are doing the same thing. And that's what I experienced. And I say, you know what? That's it. It was no brainer. Win it. So,
indeed. And we got a slight correction from our good brother Langston Morrison. He says Asa Hilliard was actually an Omega, and he pledged with Khalid Abdul. And I think you maybe I know it's Dr. Jacob Carruthers, who's actually frat. So when you think of Jacob Carruthers, you think of, again, Anthony Browder, now Dr. Nyah Amara, of course, Dr. What's his name? Dr. Greg Carr, and of course, Dr. Mario Beatty, and a few others, and it's along those lines that it was the same. See, for me, I was one of those African-centered folks. Was like, I ain't messing with them damn Greeks. Everybody want to be Greeks and all this other kind of stuff. And at this time, I was at Southwest Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas. And at that time, when I was there before I transferred to U of H, the alphas were kicked off for hazing, but they had just came back for the semester, at the end of the semester when I was leaving, and but I didn't realize it at the time then, but like there were other organizations that were started by members of Alpha because they didn't have the organization. So they just created other organizations to keep the programming going while they were suspended. And so this was like organizations like Black Men United, Kumasi and stuff like this, still bringing the African programming. And so this organization was more African centered, in terms of the, and of course it was Christians and stuff involved, but they had a Black consciousness, a Black centeredness, at Southwest Texas State. So when I went to U of H, it was totally different. These brothers was more, about business and kind of bougie and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that bull, it was just a different chapter. And so like I was talking to who is now, a frat brother, our brother Lasana Hotep. And he was like, look, the frat is bigger than the chapter, get in, serve, and bring your uniqueness, to the chapter. If they don't have African-centered programming, you bring African-centered programming. And so, and I liked, saying what they were doing. I was so used to what those brothers were doing over there that, I had to remember, like, that stuff can be brought to U of H. So when I went to U of H and I pledged there, like, because everybody know who I was, because I already started an organization called Umoja. And I wanted to be something similar like to Kumasi, which was at Southwest Texas State University. And so, me coming in, they're like, oh, here, he's gonna bring all that Black stuff, saying to the frat. But sure enough, I did exactly just that. But I come to find out later that there was more individuals who were like me, and that it was a diverse group of individuals, and that so chapters are different. Each set of lines are different, in terms of the generations, and and so there was just some underlying things that I appreciated, about the organization. As Brother Sonjedi said, like even in our iconography, there's Africa in terms of the pyramids and the Sphinx and things of this nature, and then of course what the name means and things of this nature, and just who was all involved, in the organization, over time. And these individuals is like, especially when we're talking about like African-centered spaces, all these conferences that I would go to and things, 7 times out of 10, if they did belong, they were males and belonged to a Greek letter organization, they were alphas, and I found that, saying to be something of value. But then the organization itself, and so there's certain things that when you first get in it, you don't realize until later, like how unique and special that is, to your overall growth and development, and then overall to the larger community in terms of its scope. And so with that being said, in terms of your experiences, and I'm gonna get to a question, because that's a question that everybody wants to know in terms of the quote unquote hazing, which all the organizations are non-hazing organizations. Just want to say that off rip.
Exactly.
But in terms of just what Brother Nkito said, in terms of him being able to go anywhere and find a member of his organization, there to kick it with, or to do business with, or whatever, like how important and how valuable, I should say, is the networking aspect, and what types of relationships have you been able to build with the members in your organizations, and how has that benefited you personally, And so I'll go with Sonjedi, then Nkito, then Sister Nyah.
All right. So in regards to like the brotherhood, networking, how has that helped? It can help with professional development. You're more likely to, have doors open that you would not have had you not been in the fraternity. So you'll know someone who, let's just say, is a financial advisor who would be like your best friend, but you would never have known anything about that networking had you not been, a frat brother with him. And then he calls, say, hey, I know you're looking for something. Hey, I have this this workshop coming up. And then you say, oh man, I don't have the criteria to really get in there. And he says, no, I got you. Just come, you're going to benefit. I don't have a degree in it. Don't worry about it. Come on in. Then boom, you get in, and then you get that benefit, and then that helps to give you a leg up, if you will. And in fact, as part of the tenets in the fraternity, a brother is to help in the personal progress of a brother. All right, and that's actually written in the personal progress of another brother. I'm sure that the brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi have something like that. The women of Zeta Phi Beta, I have to enunciate the T's, because if you don't enunciate those T's, not Zeta with a D, you gotta say with a T. They have something in there, some way written the same way. It's helped me. Well, college. It helped me with college, as far as knowing who to go to, because there were some alphas who helped me, get into Delaware State University. To put me in touch with the people I need to, be in touch with. People in the military, etc. That's been a good help as well. And now I'm reaching back and doing the same thing.
Brother Nkito?
I don't know. I guess my networking levels, it just gets so crazy. I mean, it's almost on some Illuminati levels. So it started off with just Kappa Alpha Psi, but I mean, I was the Panelist Council president for a year, so I reach out to other organizations too. So it's like not only in Kappa Alpha Psi, like I know Harold, I didn't know something about certain things, I can reach out to him. I mean, I don't discriminate when I just get the job done, So and because of these networks, I mean, I've been self-employed for almost 20 years now. So it's lovely. The network is beautiful.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Nyah?
So the networking is like powerful. I joined in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm now in Los Angeles. So and since being in LA, I lived in 2 different cities so far, and each city has a chapter. So I've had the opportunity to link up with my sorors here, and they've connected me to beauticians, nail techs, clothing stores, events where I'm reconnecting with people here in Los Angeles. Of course, events and a lot of professional development. How to organize events, how to execute events, how to work with other people in events. And so it's the networking, the reach. I've met sorors from UCLA, from USC. I'm an undergraduate advisor, so I connect with professors and doctors and lawyers. So I feel connected. It provides me with a sense of community with the Zetas. So it's a powerful tool, and I think it's an important tool, because a lot of our community, African Americans, sometimes we can get trapped in this idea of individualism, where we can just do everything ourselves and we don't need anyone. And, we solo bolo, whatever. But when you join an organization, community becomes like a tool for you to grow. So that's how I've used it, in, you know, since I've been a Zeta. So it's been an experience for me.
Indeed. And I think that is something that, you know, people sleep on in terms of these organizations. And we have to keep in mind that the reason why if somebody from, you know, is verified as being in the same organization as you, like that opens up a sense of, you know, you may not know who that person is, but you know what they stand for because they belong to the same organization that has the same values and same commitments as you. So because you know where he or she stands, you know, in life, and they've been able to be accepted and participate in such an organization, you are a bit more trusting of that person, you know, when it comes to business and whatever. And so, and just like what our good brother Nkito said earlier, you know, of course, it starts off that way in just your organization. But as you get older and, you know, you get into the business world, if they belong to any of the organizations, you know, we show them love. And, you know, you hear, for example, you know, one of your frat brothers in Quito that's constantly in the news, brother Kevin Samuels, when he talks about, you know, one of his first corporate jobs, it was a brother who was an alpha who actually hired him because he saw that he was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi and knew what Kappa Alpha Psi was about. And so he knew that, you know, saying this person would do what it needs to be done, you know, saying to get the job done, you know, saying he's commitment, he's a team player, all this other kind of stuff. And so that was a leg up for Kevin getting the position. And this happened like that in reverse for me, you know, with people who have been Kappas or AKAs who have given me an opportunity because they knew that I belong, you know, to this particular organization. And so, you know, and this is something that I want a lot of us in the African-centered world community to really understand, that you create these types of organizations and, you know, its members spread, and you want to create networks, you know, in far distant places with a variety of people in with different skill sets and resources, so that y'all can, so the whole can achieve, you know, greater goals. And so, you know, these types of organizations, and I'm not saying it's 100%, but its filtration process, you know, is one of the best, because you want to get individuals who are committed, first of all, to completing a goal in scholarship and intellectual pursuits. And so that's why it's on the university campuses. And then, of course, you know, the other criteria in terms of courage, commitment, loyalty, and things of this nature. So people, you know, in the pre band hazing days, I'll just say, you know, when you had members to go through a line, you know, what it means to come in as strangers and then leaving it having a shared experience and becoming, you know, brothers, and knowing what to and how to sacrifice for each other and things of this nature, and what that means long term. And so, like, the networking thing is very important. And I just saw your message, brother Sonjedi. You want to add to the networking? Mic is muted.
Okay, yeah, you kind of like reaching the ethers and like stole it out of my head. So, you know, with the networking, like it cuts down on the time to get to know someone. which another way of saying what you were mentioning. You meet these other guys or these other women, you don't know them. One or two you may know from around campus or something like that. You come in and you're learning things. You're learning how to work together, and then at the end of that time period, then you know this person, and like even to this day, me, my LBs, it was 8 people on my line, and at any moment, like we could not speak for a year and pick up right where we left off, like my ace, me and him haven't spoken in about like 2 years, but we picked the phone up. It's like we just spoke yesterday, catch up with family, etc. Something happens to somebody's family, everybody's calling, hey man, I'm here with you, so that's the beauty of it. And when you're getting into these networks, you're more apt to help. When you get out into the work world after college, you're more apt to help because, like you said, this person has gone through some things similar to me, even if they're in a different BGLO. All right. By principle, we all go through the same thing. By principle, we have our individual personality gauges, but essentially it's all the same. You just pick the one that fits you the best. We have that common identity. See, when you have the common identity, this goes into the South African concept of Ubuntu, where I am because we are therefore I am kind of thing. So if he has a problem, my line brother has a problem, that means I have a problem because I'm responsible for his well-being. He was responsible for my well-being. So if he breaks his leg, then it is my responsibility and duty to make sure he gets well. If my line brother is financially strapped, it is my responsibility to make sure that he's good. It's not, do it because that's your homie. No, it's this is what you will do. It's not and if you neglect it, that's a problem because, then you're neglecting, what are you here for anyway? Because it's called fraternity, frater, brotherhood. Of course, in Kemetic language, we would say sinu, which is like brotherhood, kinship. So I almost got a little emotional there. So that's that. But that's what it means. So if I'm out there and I run across brother Nkito, I know that he has the character to go through what I went through just in his own organization. And I'm looking for, say, a partner to do a project on. I already know he has a certain character already, because we're out in the business world, it's not as important that we're in the same fraternity or sorority. It's important, but then it's less important. It's more important in college. But then I'm like, I want to work with this brother right here. You know what I'm saying? Because I know he's coming with it. Kind of thing. Same thing, with Nyah. I know that she's coming with it. So
exactly. And that's a common thread in all the organizations that I note is that the members generally in each of these organizations want the best for Black people. Now they may have different ideas on how to approach and what is the best for Black people, but ultimately, they just want the best for Black people, and they do what they can. They may not have the strongest, deepest Africanist spirituality and knowledge and culture and all this other kind of stuff, but they work with what they have at the level that they're at. And at the end of the day, they want the best for Black people. Now I have to ask this question, because this is what I get all the time. Is there anything Greek about your organization outside of the letters that are used?
No. No.
I have to remind folks like that because they be like, y'all just want to be Greeks. It's like, no,
No.
there's nothing Greek. So the question, or my response usually to that is, I'm like, if you have the NAACP and they use Roman Latin letters, does that make them Romans? Because the letters that they use for the acronym are Roman letters. The same thing with the NOI. So
but I can see where the confusion starts. Because sometimes you be on camera like, oh yeah, he's Greek or she's Greek, and they'll assume that you're referring to as the culture of Greek.
Right.
Indeed.
And
But
they started out with Greek anyway because they wanted to be we couldn't come out the gate African because it would have been too threatening at the time when the Greek organizations was being established. So they had to kind of like, okay, when they say white people were already familiar with Greek organizations, so
exactly,
that's how they all kind of started out. But I think at some point somebody should have just stepped in and just kind of recalibrated it and readjusted it and brought it back to Africa, but they never did. So it's still Greek letter organizations to this day. I love seeing hieroglyphs on the shirts. Just to get it popping, but I don't know. I guess we're too far gone for that.
Right, but it's important because I think what happens, more than too much, is that people suffer from this this hindsight bias. So people want our ancestors, they want to go to the early 1900s and try to shape the experience of African people in America. And that's a bias. It's something that they do just to make themselves feel good. Because when our ancestors began to create these organizations, they were doing it as Africans. They understood the differences between being in the white organizations versus a Black organization. So they created something that works for them. And so when you're evaluating what our ancestors did, and you're engaging in this type of ridiculous thought of hindsight, you're using your hindsight, they could have been African. They couldn't have been African because it wasn't their era. That's the beauty of joining organizations, because over time, like Brother Sar was saying, you can build an African type of perspective into that organization through your work that you do. You can create programming, you can volunteer, in a way that shows African principles. But I think that we got to get away from this hindsight bias where we think that we can just evaluate information from the past based on what we know today. It's kind of ridiculous.
But some organizations have made adjustments though, because before the AKAs used to have a paper bag test. If you wasn't lighter than the paper bag, you couldn't be an AKA. So they had enough sense that later on, well, that's wrong. We need to fix that.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
There is room for improvement, basically.
Yeah, and it wasn't like the sisters in AKA, they were, being malicious. That was part of the culture. And it wasn't like they were, we can look back and say it was bad, but when they were going through it, that dynamic was real. And we want to make sure that we're looking at those dynamics and what happened and evaluating it. So when we begin to build organizations in today, that we can improve, we can do something different than what our ancestors did.
Yeah. And then as far as like the hindsight thing, people, you have to look at the history, the historical, social, and intellectual climate that was occurring, late 1890s going into the early 1900s. What kind of information was available? What was our social status? What was going on? Okay.
They act like they had access to Sheikh Anta Diop and Teofilo Benga.
Yeah, like
and Asa Hilliard at those times. Like, no.
Yeah, Diop, take this into account. Sheikh Anta Diop, the great ancestor, he was not born until the 1920s. Then you got people born 1918. You got some people, they weren't even born yet when these fraternities and sororities were formed, with the exception of 1962, 63 for the latest member of the Divine Nine.
I would have thought they do.
Yeah.
But I mean, how many books would you have to read to say that, to be looking at other people saying, being a black person saying, oh, you too black, you can't be in my organization. I mean, how many intellectual books do you have to read to realize that's wrong?
Right. Exactly.
But even still, but at the same time, like yesterday, I had a conversation on Dr. Oya Maat's channel with Lord Abba on Pan-Africanism, right? And can you get reparations without Pan-Africanism? That was the subject under debate. And so, just prepping for the discussion and reading some of the materials on Pan-Africanism, one of the texts was stressing that you got to look at Pan-Africanism in context over time, and that there were some ideologies that just weren't right at the time, and even from some of our greatest people. So like certain people in Africa rejected Pan-Africanism because people like Du Bois and people like Marcus Garvey had more of a colonial mindset, like the African Americans were going to come to Africa and civilize the Africans. Elijah Muhammad had that same attitude. And so
I'm sorry, some of the African kingdoms owned slaves too, so it's a mixture of everything.
Yeah, but we got to understand, like, our consciousness now in 2021 comes as a result of a number of debates and researches that have we're benefiting, as she said, in terms of hindsight, versus what was going on there in their mindset. So what was saying is that over time, certain other Pan-Africanists realized the error in certain logic that some of the founders had, and then they corrected those over time. So now when you talk about Pan-Africanism, it's a more mature, more thought out, encompassing idea and practice, versus when in 1900, this is before the frats. So the first Pan-African Congress is in 1900 with W.B. Du Bois. And the last one being like 1968, because there was 5 Pan-African conferences. So imagine 1900 to 1968, and just 1900 to, that's 121 years. It's 2021.
But not too long ago, they're having the dark skin, light skin debates, and the straight hair, kinky hair. That's still going on today, though. So that's
more so the common folks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's just,
we got common folks, we got elites now.
We're debating bonnets on the internet right now. And should you go out and I can't mix that conversation with the conversations that that people are having.
5%, huh?
This is and that's another thing. But now I want to kind of switch to the my question is based on an assumption that you grew up here in America and that you were unconscious of your historical past, and that you came into the knowledge of self, and love for Africa at some time later on in your life, right? That you weren't necessarily born into this. So what attracted? I'm sorry?
I was going to say, how would I get exposed to it if I hadn't known about it?
No, I'm just saying in terms of later on in life. It could have been in college, some friends, whatever. So I'm just assuming that from birth, you had a different experience. You may have grew up Christian, Muslim, or just Indian American. You was waving, you was like this during the flag, the what do you call it? The Pledge of Allegiance and all that when you was young. And then later on in life, you came to a different kind of consciousness in terms of relationships to Africa, African culture, and African spirituality. So if you can, like in 3 minutes or less, kind of give us, what drew you to Africa, and you said that this is what I want to identify with, and in my life, that this is something that that I belong to, so to speak. So I'll start with Nkito, then Sonjedi, then Sister Nya.
So for me, actually, this is my life story. So after college, I was hanging out with one of my homegirls who was a Delta, and she had a book sit down. It was called From the Botterfile by Mr. Broder. So I'm in the living room, just kind of flicking through, like, what is this? What is this foreign object right here? I read a couple of pages. It's making a whole lot of sense. It's like you don't know to look for it, but when you find it, it's like, whoa. So I started reading that book, and I got a couple of more of his books. Next thing you know, I'm reading all these different African books. And that was my awakening, like post-college. And the Broder File, I stumbled on that book, and that's when I started digging deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and then it's never looked back.
And then, Brother Sonjedi?
Again, going back to this book here, Journey of the Song God People. Again, at the time when I read the book, I didn't know he was an alpha, but it when you get into African tradition, it's already African. Mm-hmm. When you go into Christianity, you have to look for the secret, which is, okay, Jesus was a black man. Of course, for me at this point, it's kind of irrelevant, but at the time, it's like, well, oh, the secret is he was a black man. Like, you have to do all this digging just to find some African roots. Okay? And you got to pull teeth. But with African tradition, it's already African. The deities already look like you. I don't have to speculate. When I go to Africa, anywhere, I see not only you got the culture, but the thing that supports the culture, and let's say Kimoyo, is we also have archaeological evidence to back it up. I don't have to try to like when I look at, say, Oshun, or look at Obatala, etc. When I look at the statues of Shango, when I look at images of Amun Ra, when I look at Amenemopet, when I look at Amenemhet, when I look at them, I see myself already. I don't have to dig. I don't have to speculate. So you're not spending all this time trying to find your racial makeup. It's already there. So you spend more time in the culture, and you don't have to deal with racial neglect and all that stuff that comes, with the Abrahamic traditions. You're dealing less and less with racism. And I have to say less and less because not like it's not in Africa. But yeah, so we can go on and on, but that's it in a nutshell.
All right, Sister Nya.
For me, it was more of a journey. In my family tradition, like I know a lot of you guys, the focus is really on education. Go to school, get an education, be different. And so when I went to school and I was studying, we read a lot about European culture, Western culture, white people this, the Greeks that, and it was interesting, but it was really boring, and I felt disconnected from it. And I, even in church, I enjoyed the music, I enjoyed the word, but in terms of the theology itself, it did not make sense to me. So when I started to study Ifa and learn about dynamics and psychology and how everything is moving and interacting with nature and with all these attributes of God, I just started to feel more. My intuition was better. My thoughts came out much more at ease. So I kind of journeyed into this African spirituality. But as I was in my journey, there was nothing about Western culture that excited me. I trust in my family, get an education, because if you get an education, you can pay these bills. But when I was engaging in the educational system, I didn't feel connected to that. And so once I started to study Afrocentricity, I got fired up. Boy, I was I was like on fire. And so I just was like, okay, I need some more. Where the Black folks at? Because I grew up in Compton. So a lot of the focus was really, it was on gangs and, hoods and stuff. But when I started to study the history of Africa and African people, the concepts and the psychology, it really sparked something in me. So that's why I became African.
Indeed. Now, my story is pretty simple. Of course, I grew up in numerous places, but my start was really kind of in Houston, Texas. And I, grew up like most folks going to the church, but I went to white churches. So I didn't go to have the black church experience until later on. But because I grew up on the quote unquote white side of town, there was always this question of, where am I in all of this? Because I grew up in West Houston, at the time, and brother Nkito know, I'm trying to see if the Galleria was really strong. The Galleria was still kind of strong then, but like the closer you get to the Beltway, like off of like Westheimer and Richmond, like a lot of that wasn't built when I lived there. It was like it was still fields, and the Beltway was still being built, at that time. So I went to Paul Revere Middle School. And, I remember going to the dances, and, you pray for a black song to come on, that you can dance to at the school dance, because everything was just straight white songs, New Kids on the Block, and just all this other kind of stuff, back in the day. So, luckily there was a woman by the name of Mrs. Bird who taught geography and who started us off with Africa and would give us all this blackity blackness, and I started realizing that, like this is where, I'm from and needed to be. I wanted to know more. And so, I would be into blackness. And of course, this is in the beginnings of the golden age of hip hop. So there's all kinds of blackity blackness in hip hop, at this particular time. And then, some family situations, happened. And then I had to move with my mom in San Antonio, Texas. So then that's where I entered the hood, what I'm saying, and the projects and things of this nature. And that's where I met later on the Hebrew Israelites. So the Hebrew Israelites, because I was into blackity blackness, and it was like, this is the black people in the Bible, and da 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 da. So, I joined that until the time that I went into college. And so, when I got into college, I was already, certain things weren't adding up with the Hebrew Israelite doctrine. And, and it was once I got into college and really started studying, and, these works by like Anthony Browder and hearing Naeem Akbar's speeches and, all of this other good stuff, and the Dr. Benz, that my orientation began to shift back to Africa. And, so before I even joined the organization, I was already into Black consciousness, which, again, my initial rejection of joining the frat, because I'm like, I ain't being no dang Greek, and, ain't nobody finna do nothing to me, and da 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 da, all this other kind of stuff, right? So, but what drew me to Africa is just like basically what all of y'all said. Like, I've seen myself, like stuff just started to make sense. I started to have an explanation for certain things that we do, as a people, and I started finding language to articulate our struggles and ultimately what we mean when we say what we do in these things. I started to find that language, and I started to, like, especially with reading Dr. John Henry Clark, started to develop critical questions of history and self, and of course, as everyone should know, this hasn't wavered by any bit, since the late 90s, for me, in terms of Africa. Now it's gone deeper in terms of joining a priesthood and all of this other kind of stuff. And we can, probably get into that later. But what my question now is, do you find commonalities in your Black Greek letter organizational experience and some of the things that you've studied and come to know, in terms of Africa, studying and or participating in African culture as understood continental wise? And who went last time? Nyah? Okay, so I'm going Nkito, Nyah, then Brother Sonjedi.
Okay, so what's the question again?
The question is, do you find any commonality in terms of your Black Greek letter organizational experience and that which you have studied in terms of Africa and or participated in terms of engaging African culture and or spirituality?
I think all organizations, and I guess just nature period, it all works in certain systems where there's always going to be some type of commonality. And I think that no matter what playing field you're going to always have to dig deeper. Even though somebody might be my frat brother, that doesn't mean I don't have to do my due diligence sometimes. Still got to do your due diligence. I mean, there's always going to be, in any organization, there's always going to be a Judas. Let's go ahead and put that out there. There's always going to be different things. There's always people working for the government. So it's like, just like in an organization, it's like I'm pretty sure it's like that in Africa too. No matter what culture, tribe, how committed they might say they are, there's always going to be somebody working against the greater good.
All right.
Just off the top of my head, I was thinking off the top of my head. Hate to be bad news, but you got to always stay on your toes.
Indeed. And so for people that don't know, Brother Nkito is very political. In his consciousness. He more Black political consciousness. But brother, Sister Nyah.
I mean, there's so many things, but I think the thing that stands out for me is the reverence to the ancestors, the Ogun. Like just paying homage to like our founders, to our history, being respectful to the lineage, the history, and what they've developed. I mean, it's so strong within my sorority. It's beautiful. So it's a lot of things, but for that, it's important to me because my grandma, my big mama, she always is like, respect is the only thing you have, and always give respect to your elders. And when I was younger, I was kind of a knucklehead and I thought I could do whatever I wanted to do. And so since I've been in the organization and just studying African science, like reverence to our ancestor and really evaluating them and sitting with them and being them is so important to the organization. So that's what comes to mind today.
All right, Brother Sonjedi.
So y'all keep going in the ethers and like taking my answers. So I'm going to silverback a little bit here. So in respect to my fraternity, unofficially we use apes. But anyway, so it's the veneration of ancestors and the veneration of your elders that's common with African traditions. So let's take, for example, yesterday, one of the newer brothers who pledged my fraternity this year, spring 2021, he hits me up and says, "Hey, what's up, OG?" And I'm like, "Oh, gee." So he's here in Jersey. So I said, "Okay, look, let's meet up for lunch." So we met at the Black bookstore in Newark. Called The Source of Knowledge, because I want to make sure he has that. And watch this, he's a Muslim. But again, our race transcends that. So I took him there, and imparted wisdom onto him because I'm his elder. I'm his elder. In all technicality, I'm old enough to be his pops, but but in the fraternity, I'm his elder. So I'm Spring 05. Guys who pledged in Spring 06, I'm the special, as you call it. I'm the you got neophytes, you got prophytes. Okay. So I'm a prophyte to them. So therefore, if someone pledges after you, you are that person's elder. We got this term called old school. Old school is going to come visit, come during homecoming, right?
Yeah.
So those are your elders, and you respect them. You have, we even have specific greetings for these elders. A pleasure for you. You have a certain greeting for them. So African tradition, let's go to the tradition of Isheshe Legba and the Yoruba people. Some people call it Ifa, but that's a divination system. But in Isheshe Legba, when you see it comes to the presence of a Babalawo or a Ianifa, then you dobale, you bow. There's a specific kind of a greeting that shows respect. Each organization, each BGLO organization, you better know the name of your founders. You coming in, if you do not know the name of the founders of your organization, that is sacrilege, is blasphemy. In fact, you can't even get in.
and the dates are on founded.
Yeah, if you don't know the name, because guess what? The founders of your organization, those are your ancestors. Yes. Those are your ancestors. Yeah. You have to know the names of the founders of your respective chapters. If you don't know that, you ain't coming into the chapter. It's not happening. So now with African tradition, I have to know my Babalawo's name. I got to know his Babalawo's name. So my Babalawo, Obafemi Fayemi Ipega, and he is the godson of Afolabi Ipega, who is a 5th generation Babalawo out of Ode Remo in Ogun State, Nigeria. That's the lineage. You need to know that. The lineage of your divination system. You need to know that. So we have those parallels, and even in your own family, because you can take that and use it as an example for your own family. All right, who's your mother's name? Who's her mother's name? Going back, I know the name of my great grandfather who fought World War II. I know the name of his father who fought World War I. Okay, you have to know those things. So these are some of the commonalities, because we know African tradition, ancestor veneration is top notch. Top notch.
Exactly.
Same thing with these organizations. So.
Now I'm going to have to go back to the pre-ban hazing days for this example. So, this no longer exists in any of our respective organizations. But the everyone is seen, for example, well, I ain't gonna say everyone. I don't know about these young cats, but people our generation have all seen School Days, and even I bet anybody who has pledged an organization prior to joining it has watched School Days thinking they're about to get some jewels. But School Days was produced at a time when pledging was done, quote unquote, overground and in the public. So you knew who was pledging because they walked, but they had a certain uniform on. They couldn't do certain things. They had to give certain greetings to members of the organization. They had to do certain types of I just said that in terms of the greetings. And so, but they were isolated from the people for the most part, and they all had to be uniform in how they looked. And of course, the remembering of the elders and the ancestors of the organization is top notch. You had to learn songs, in the form of poems or whatnot, to help you through. You had you know, before you would go over, you would have certain rituals. In all organizations, everybody has a ritual. And so don't think that it's, you know, some demonic thing. You go to church, you have rituals. You go to a wedding, you have a wedding ritual. Is every system has a ritual, but that the nature of the rituals and the process of an old self of you dying and a new birth of you into the world and becoming an adult. You know, this is the kind of thing that you would see common in these particular organizations.
Would it be safe to say it's alchemy? Would it be safe to say it's a form of alchemy?
Basically, you know, kind of mental alchemy, kind of social alchemy. And so, you know, you have demonstrated to members of the organization that, and just like Brother Sonjedi said, there was hardships, and people don't understand. Like, there's certain people that say that, you know, I would never let somebody do such and such to me if I was in these particular organizations, and da da da. These are kind of people who are afraid of challenge, you know, and hasn't been tested. You go into these African systems and want to join their fraternal organizations, you're going to have to go through pain. That's just what we do, because it is through pain and challenge that you discover who you are, who you truly are, and then what you can do in terms of what you thought you couldn't do. So, like, you know, this is something that even, what's his name, David Goggins, if a lot of y'all are familiar with David Goggins, you know, and his kind of workout and just his life, you know, he keeps re-emphasizing that you're going to have to struggle, you're going to have to triumph over challenges to really discover who you are and what you're made of. And these types of organizations had in times past put together these type of experiences so that when you went out into the world, you would not be nervous and fold and fold under pressure when certain challenges, you know, saying would come your way. Because and here's the secret to all of that in terms of the old school pledging. It was teaching you how to be a good father and mother. Because when the going gets tough in your family, you have to be the kind of person to do what you have to do to make sure that your family is straight. And you have to build up the courage to learn when to lean on your family when times get tough. And, you know, all of this in the grand scheme of things is how to become better men and women for the society, because it's all about community. And so that we can be the best version of ourselves when we get out into the world and serve. So every organization has a fundamental requirement of service, you know. And so you go through all of that to learn how to sacrifice yourself for your larger community and to see the larger community as family, so that you would do what is necessary for the larger group. And so, you know, this is something that you would learn with whether you join the military, whether you join Fruit of Islam, you know, a fraternal organization, an African-centered organization, in terms of going to the continent or whatnot. It's all the same. It's connecting you to people that you weren't born with in the same household, so that you can view your people as family, so that you will know what it takes to sacrifice and serve your family for the greater good of the community. And I think that is something that the BGLOs do very well. And so I'm going to end it soon. And so before I do that, I want you know, if anybody wants to connect with y'all, and I purposely saved this for last in terms of who you are and what you do, you know, and for people to, you know, get in contact with you for these types of services and things of that nature, or they want to know more about your respective organization. Maybe some younger folks, or maybe some folks, you know, want to join a grad chapter, didn't have the opportunity in an undergrad chapter, is interested in your organization. So I'll start with Sister Nyah, then Brother Nkito, then Brother Sonjedi again.
Okay, so what I do, so I'm a licensed therapist by trade. So I work with African American people on issues of relationship, family, depression, and I do use African psychology to help people remove challenges and barriers. If you want to contact me just for a consultation, you can email me at nya.amara@gmail.com. Again, nyah.amar@gmail.com. My organization, Zeta Phi Beta, we have a lot of auxiliary groups. So if you don't have a degree, or if you don't meet the eligibility criteria for whatever reason, you can still get involved by going to our website. We have a male network group. We have youth rites of passages programs. So you would just need to hook up in your local area. But if you outreach me and you're interested in those programs, you can definitely email me. If you're looking for counseling and you are in California, Missouri, or Nevada, I'm available. You can find me at Psychology Today, and my name is April Adams Edwards. And you can request an appointment there.
Indeed.
Well, I'm sorry to inform the listeners that Kappa Alpha Psi is currently full, so we're no longer maybe check back tomorrow. I mean, I'm just joking. I'm in marketing and web solutions. I do a lot of promotions for concerts, special events. My website is www.713black.com. You can basically contact me through the website if you have any questions about anything, about Africa, about travel, about history. I mean, you can contact me through there because the emails pretty much come to me. As far as Kappa Alpha Psi, I would say just, you know, go to the campus, fill out, really, you're supposed to go to all the different smokers for all the different organizations and find one that kind of fits you, as opposed to just, you know, based on your outside looking in saying, well, I see this organization, I want to join that organization. So I say just go listen to everybody. But at the end of the day, you know, of course I'm going to be biased to Kappa Alpha Psi. I don't know no other way to go, but hey, to each his own. Definitely do the research and check everybody out.
Indeed. And before you go, Brother Sonjedi, if y'all can type in your in the private chat, like your contacts and websites and stuff, I'm gonna make sure that it's in the description when we end this program. And so I'll have y'all names there. So make sure you put that there before y'all leave. All right, Brother Sonjedi.
Okay. So I'm just putting the email. Okay. So by training, I'm a medical technician. Currently back in school, you know, for nursing. So I'm always in the healthcare field. I do teach Sesh Medu Neter, the ancient Egyptian language, for the Institute of Kemetic Philology, which is headed by Dr. Riketi Amen. And if you want to get in contact with me, you can do it through the email, which will go in the description there. Sonjedi Ankh Ra @gmail.com. If we're Facebook friends, you can contact me there as well. If you have any questions about, you know, history, the Kemetic tradition, even dealing with like West African traditions, because I deal with both Kemetic tradition, which I am initiated in, as well as West African tradition, Ifa, as well. If you you have questions about Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, you can still email me there, or you can simply go to the website which is APA 1906 .net. Mm-hmm. So you can go there.
All righty. And y'all should know me already. All I do is start mess on the internet. And so if you want to learn how to start more mess on the internet, holla at me. Y'all know the website, asarimhotep.com. And me and Brother Sonjedi belong to the same org, so the same details would be there. So I do appreciate each and every one of you for engaging in this conversation. And again, for the folks listening, this will be one of two. So in the next one, I'll probably have some members of Delta Sigma Theta, of Omega Psi-Phi, and I'm trying to find my good brother, and I don't know why I didn't think of him now for this program, but he's in my head now, so I'm gonna get him. He's a brother out of I think he went to PV, and he's a out of Phi Theta, also in the E5 tradition, and so correct, and with another priestess who's also an AKA, and so they'll be in the second one. So we're just scheduling that, and then of course the next in the series is those who belong to the Prince Hall, and just Masonic organization itself, and the Eastern Stars and African culture and spirituality. And then of course the next one will be the BGLO and Christianity, BGLO, Christianity and Islam. So I'm gonna have some folks who belong to that in the share their experience, and or if there's any conflicts, and just to have that larger conversation. So this is part of a series. So we've established, at least for the members who are on the panel right now, that they do not see any conflict with being in the Black Greek Letter organization, and find many commonalities in general with African culture, which I would say, which of course should be, since it was started by African people just here in the United States. But I want to give a minute to each of you for closing words. And so I'll start with Sonjedi, Brother Nkito, and then end with Sister Nya.
All right. So I will end with a quote from Hotep, who was a Jati, which you might call like a Grand Vizier, in the 5th dynasty of ancient Kemet under King Isesi or Sasa. He says, "Be not arrogant because of your knowledge. Take counsel with the ignorant as well as with the wise, for the limits of knowledge have not been set, nor has anyone reached them. For wisdom is rarer than emeralds and can be found amongst the maize of the grindstones." In other words, seek knowledge in different places. Even if you're in a BGLO, seek knowledge in another organization or another paradigm, and always learn. And as asarimhotep may say, or he's quoting from African tradition, he who's never left home says mother is the best cook. So you want to travel mentally to these places and physically, and get initiated in African traditions as well as organizations, and bring it together, because much fruit, much sustenance can be shared, cross latitude, etc. So,
I'll say keep seeking knowledge, keep reading, try to stay healthy in this toxic environment of today. And if you ever see two pimps argue, just be quiet, because they'll start spilling all the beans and spilling all the tea. You can acquire a lot of information that way as well. So that's all I got for y'all today.
All right. Sister Nya.
As we journey through this process of consciousness, I just want you guys to always remember, the principle of as above is also below. And the principle speaks to the dynamics that we have in this lifetime that prepare us to develop the character to be able to heal from all the trauma and all the experience that we have while we're here. And so it's important that when we are going through this process of consciousness, we're keeping an open mind about African people. And when we are evaluating African people in the present as well as in the past, that we're not engaging, we're not being judgmental, and we're not applying our hindsight to their experiences, because there's dynamics that are taking place at each and every generation that are preparing not only us, but our kids and our family for the continual healing of our nation of Black people and African people. So we have to experience life. We can't put up all these roadblocks and these unnecessary rules and these challenges. Life is already challenging. We don't have to create any additional challenges. And so when we're looking at African people, it's important that we consider the spirituality of African people, the medicine of African people, the life of African people, and not in a judgmental way, but in an open-minded way, so we can get what we need to be able to develop into the people that we need to become in order to fix and to solve the issues from the past.
Indeed, indeed. Again, thank each and every one of you. Again, I will have their contact information in the description after this show. And we have some wonderful interviews coming up. And I will keep the public informed of that. Make sure that you guys, before you leave, that is right, like the video, share the video, and if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. So I've had this channel for mad years, and I would post stuff every 6 months or so. But I think now I'm gonna really kind of push the channel and do the follow. So I'm trying to get to 10,000 followers, and up to 30,000. That'll be my goal. So y'all help me reach the goal of 10,000 and on up to 1 million subscribers, so we can get this type of information out to the public. And what'd you say?
So you try to get shot.
Hey, look, I got to do what you got to do. I got a bump for my people, and those are those who know. Get
that 50-cent bulletproof vest.
Hey, I'm looking for one though. In real talk, in terms of bulletproof vests.
Well, they have like Teflon shirts you can get it in, I think, like Colombia, where it's like a regular shirt, but it's Teflon. So the shoe it won't penetrate you, don't leave a stain. That's called it.
That's on some John Wick. I need the whole John Wick.
Depending on the
caliber. Suit, bulletproof suit. But yeah, so y'all already know where to find me. Here's my contact information. I will see y'all probably this Friday for another conversation. So y'all have a blessed rest of the weekend or Sunday evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.